Hello, my name is Ziba. I came to Canada as a refugee with my husband and our children. We had a rough start, but we were thankful to make Canada our new home. Being new in the country, things were smooth and great at first, but later turned sour after my husband could not find a job because of his lack of Canadian work experience. It became worse as he started drinking and hitting me. He further stopped me from finding a job, claiming I needed to stay home and look after our children. The money from the government was not enough since we were looking after our extended family back home. I was tired of the fights and the scars which I could no longer hide in front of my children. I confided in a friend who connected me with a counselor, and I sought the help I needed. I am glad I spoke up.
Break the Silence in COVID-19, presented by the Artists and Artisans Development and Network, funded by the Red Cross Canada.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, my name is Sana Sajid, and I will be your host for today. I welcome you to the 7th of 10 workshops in this Break the Silence in COVID-19 series. This series is presented to you by the Artists and Artisans Development and Network, funded by the Red Cross with the support of Geisha Productions, Inc. It will run through every weekend this October and November. We've been and are still hearing, sharing and discussing about the prevention of elderly abuse and violence against women. Very important issue that we need to pay attention to. From the experts, victims, survivors, and counselors in this field, we will hear all that we need to learn about this issue. The Artists and Artisans Development and Network was founded in 2014 to provide resources and community development for artists and artisans who are immigrants to Canada. We started by helping artists participate in community events and festivals to promote and showcase their work, and have since grown our community and program and offerings. We now work with over 500 artists in over 112 languages, helping them access cultural and economic opportunities. The Artists and Artisans Development Network's mission is to provide and support opportunities for economic and social development to artists and artisans of all artistic practices who are newcomers to Canada or from other visible minority groups. Our vision is to create a platform that brings awareness to underrepresented members of the community. Together, we will promote intercultural understanding, collaboration, and community building. Community is at the heart of this Break the Silence in COVID-19 series. Our purpose is to build community through conversation and the arts, and we will do that by bringing together a team of diverse collaborators, volunteers, community partners, sponsors, and artists for cultural exchange and celebration. So today we will also be soothed by performances from our artists like Shraddha Mittal to start us off. And a little bit about Shraddha Mittal is she is a commerce graduate working as an underwriting assistant in an insurance company, but dance is her passion, and she's been doing this since she was in grade 1. She's self-taught, she's done many shows and runs her dance classes by the name Bollywood Rhythm. She teaches children, youth, and seniors, and she also conducts individual and group personalized dance classes. Shraddha likes to make friends and is compassionate about expression through dance. So I'm very excited for Shraddha Mittal to be here for us, and we will now lead to her performance.
Hi friends, this is Shraddha. So I will be performing on 3 songs. So the first song, the reason why I selected this song is since our childhood we have been listening and also reading about like the parents are just similar to God. The way we worship our God, we should worship our parents. My song is not all about parents' old age abuse. It is on a positive side So the reason for me selecting this song is that it will show you how much parents they put in effort for their children, and in return they don't need anything from you. They just need your love, your time. Hope they can expect this much from our kids. Thank you. Hope you like my performance. Thank you.
बाग को जन्म देने वाला बागबान, परिवार को जन्म देने वाला पिता, दोनों ही अपने खून पसीने से अपने पौधों को सींचते हैं। ना सिर्फ अपने पेड़ से, उसके साए से भी प्यार करते हैं, क्योंकि उसे उम्मीद है एक रोज जब वो जिंदगी से थक जाएगा, यही साया उसके काम आएगा।
Thank you so much, Radha, for that beautiful dance to the song Bagban. That was very moving, and it's great to see how you can express yourself through your dance. So that was beautiful. I also wanted to give a special thanks to the Canadian Red Cross, Government of Canada, our Member of Parliament, Salma Zahid, and our Member of Provincial Parliament, Christina Midas, for their support in making this series possible. As you've been doing during the course of these workshops, we share with you helplines for you to seek assistance where needed. So we hope this information is helpful. 243 million women experienced domestic violence in the last 12 months. That's 25% of domestic violence cases soared during the pandemic and lockdown. And things are increasing because of the pandemic and lockdown. So the Assaulted Women's Helpline that you can call, which is toll-free, is 1-866-863-0511. So we hope that that is helpful for you as well. Also, 1 in 6 seniors were subject to abuse before the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we have to imagine what the numbers might seem like after such a long time in lockdown, where people have to stay home and there are health concerns as well. So the Advocacy Center for the Elderly that you can call toll-free is the number 1-855-598-2656. I want to introduce our next two speakers for the series today. So we will have Tara Mantler and Katie Shellington. Tara Mantler is a PhD and an assistant professor at the School of Health Studies at the University of Western Ontario. Her program of research involves the intersection of IPV, women's health, maternal and child health, and mental health, and enhancing the delivery of healthcare services to women experiencing IPV, especially in the rural context. Katie Shillington is a first-year doctoral student in the Health Promotion stream of the Health and Rehabilitation Sciences graduate program at Western University. Her program of research involves the intersection of mental health, resilience, women's health, IPV, and kindness. So I also want to encourage everyone who is watching to send in any inquiries or questions in our comment section, and we will address them in the Q&A session afterwards. So let's go live with Tara and Katie. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Sana. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to thank you for inviting us here today and for those wonderful introductions. We are truly honored to be part of Break the Silence in COVID-19. As Sana said, my name is Tara, and this is my colleague and friend, Katie. We have a presentation that we would like to share with you now. But before we get started, I just want to remind people or just sort of talk about the fact that we are dealing with a really heavy topic. And I would encourage everyone to be kind to themselves and take care of themselves as we're working our way through this presentation as well as afterwards. So if we could share the presentation, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. So Katie and I, along with our team, Dr. Kim Jackson, Dr. Sheila O'Keefe McCarthy, and Sarah Parkinson, we conduct research with the hope of helping women who experience IPV or intimate partner violence in the Canadian context. And what we're going to talk about today is one of our programs of research, one of our studies, and it's called PATH, or Promoting Attachment Through Healing. And so you might be asking yourself, why are researchers presenting a study, and how does that fit with this Artisan and Art network? Well, to answer that question, I need to tell you where this project started. And we'll start with the background of that now.
So let's talk a bit about what we know. We know that more than half of Canadian women have survived at least one incident of IPV at some point in their lives. And IPV has a significant impact on pregnancy and on childbirth. Intimate partner violence during the antenatal period, so before childbirth, may pose serious health risks to women and to their infants. However, gauging the actual impact of IPV on these negative health outcomes is difficult. Emerging research has reported physical IPV can affect pregnancy outcomes and has been associated with complications such as preterm labor. IPV can also affect childbirth more generally. In a study of pregnant women, those who reported physical IPV were more likely to be admitted to the hospital for abdominal trauma, placenta abruption, kidney infections, and preterm labor. There are also several studies that have demonstrated a relationship between IPV and infant low birth weight. IPV can also affect women postpartum. So for both childbearing women and their partners, individual coping strategies tend to decrease under stress, which can lead to an increased risk of both physical and psychological aggression, making pregnancy and postpartum a vulnerable period for women. We also know that women who've experienced IPV are more likely to use healthcare services, such as hospitals, and to use them more frequently compared to women who have not experienced violence. The unequal distribution of power that's inherent within the patient-provider relationship can significantly affect expectant mothers' perceived control over their circumstances. And women who have experienced IPV may have trouble accessing healthcare services, and those who are able to access healthcare services may be left feeling unsatisfied because some healthcare providers don't necessarily possess a holistic understanding of women and in terms of supporting and caring for them in the context of experiencing IPV. It's thus essential to work towards providing services for pregnant women that are sensitive to their needs in the context of the history of their exposure to violence.
So what we discovered based on this literature is that in the Canadian context, there's a gap. There's a gap of interventions that are designed to support pregnant women who have experienced IPV. And so Sarah Parkinson, a registered nurse educator from a large urban hospital, developed a trauma and violence informed cognitive behavioral therapy intervention to help women who are experiencing IPV as they navigate pregnancy, labor, and postpartum. So trauma and violence informed approaches are just practices that recognize the connection between violence, trauma, and negative health outcomes and behaviors. They understand that trauma and violence have impacts on people's lives and behaviors. And interventions that are trauma and violence informed aim to create emotionally and physically safe spaces. Sarah connected this with cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a common form of talk therapy designed to help people become aware of inaccurate or negative thinking so that they can view challenging situations more clearly and respond to them in effective ways. So with this newly developed novel intervention, our team got involved to test to see if it's effective. With the goal of this study was to explore the effectiveness of this trauma and violence informed cognitive behavioral therapy among pregnant, laboring, and postpartum women who have experiences of IPV and symptomology consistent with PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury, depression, and/or anxiety. So what happened in our study? Well, we had two groups. That's the way that we do research. The first group had the intervention, and the second group had standard care. What we did is we collected data from medical charts as well as interviews with the new moms and the women before they had babies. In the intervention group, the moms received this trauma and violence informed cognitive behavioral therapy from the clinical nurse specialist at the hospital. And the standard care moms, they just received the care that they would have normally received when they went to the hospital. What we were interested in are prenatal healthcare outcomes, birth intervention outcomes. So did women have less interventions during labor? Postpartum attachment outcomes, and sleep and depression. Sleep within the context of realizing that sleep is typically disrupted after you have a baby, but hoping that it would only be associated with the newborn and not other issues. All of the women in our study had histories of IPV. The women in our intervention study had histories of IPV and PTSI and depression symptomology that was the highest. These were women that were flagged from both prenatal care as well as psychiatry as needing additional support. And so Katie's going to tell you what we found.
All right, so what did we find? Despite the intervention group having significantly higher levels of PTSD and more concerns about their pregnancy and upcoming hospitalization when compared to the control group, women in the intervention group more frequently expressed their concerns and needs during the prenatal period, so before childbirth, and they also coped more effectively with labor and delivery during the childbirth. And among the participants in both groups, better maternal-infant bonding was demonstrated during the postpartum period.
So as researchers, we were really excited about these findings. These findings tell us that that intervention is in fact effective. And so we started to share them in the ways that researchers typically do that. We write journal articles that get published and we go to academic conferences and present. However, what we noticed was missing when we distilled the changes down to the effects in the intervention was the transformational change that women experienced wasn't being captured. This intervention had profound impacts on the way women and moms saw themselves and their motherhood journey. What we noticed was that there was a powerful story to be told, a story that was being lost in the numbers that academics and researchers love, which leads us and led us to challenge and change the way that we share findings in a study.
So what we used was a method called the ABLE method, and this stands for Arts-Based Embodied Layered Exploration. And this method was developed by a woman named Sheila O'Keefe McCarthy, and it's an approach to represent a health-related experience. So arts-informed analysis and translation of a human pain-related experience, such as IPV, helps to challenge preconceived notions about pain and enhance understanding of this human condition. The ABLE approach uses a combination of qualitative and arts-based methods to fully unravel the complexities that individuals experience along the health life continuum. So for our project, Sheila took the data from the study and she created poetry from these findings. So some of the actual sentences in the poems that we will present shortly are actually taken directly from the study transcripts, which is pretty cool. We then presented these poems to artists of various mediums who were asked to select a poem that spoke to them and create an art piece based on their interpretation of that poem.
Then what we did is we hosted an art event. We invited researchers, scholars, community members, hospital officials, students, women, and individuals who work in the domestic violence sector. They were invited to come and experience the poetry and the art. Sheila did an embodied poetry reading, and the art was divided into 4 constellations, such that people could walk around the room and experience the journey women went through, from black deep corners to breaking through the brokenness to triggering my thoughts and finally perfectly imperfect. And that's the journey that we want to share with you right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the poem, the audio recording of the poetry reading, and then we're going to follow that with a presentation of the art pieces associated with each poem. Along with each work of art, the artists were invited to share their interpretation or the thoughts that accompanied the piece as it was being created or when it was finished. And so we will read those to you as well.
Arts-based embodied representation of women's path to recovery. Black deep corners. Like I so want to be a good mom. These intrusive thoughts seeping, spreading in my mind. I can't control it. Is it my fault I have PTSD? Yes, I'm not perfect. You have to be perfect. I battle and bury my scabs and tear open my scars up and down. Don't think it. Thoughts hurt because women with mental health problems shouldn't be allowed to be moms. It's so easy to shake a baby. But I so want to be a good mom. I feel sick. I can't do this, doubting myself. I should be able to handle this. Should is such a bad word. I should be able to handle this. All these other moms can handle it. How come I can't handle this? Black corners getting bigger, moving in toward me, engulfed in huge fears, fears of hurting her. I was afraid to walk through the doorway because I was afraid that I would accidentally hit her head on the wall and she would die. And I was afraid because it was so weird, but I couldn't tell anybody that, because then when I was afraid that they would think I was crazy, and because they thought, no, they knew that I then would hurt her. So I wouldn't tell anybody, and I was so afraid. And I would think these things. Well, you're such a terrible mom. And I would often think, or I would get into a dark corner because I would think I didn't deserve my children, happiness, hope. Trying not to fall down further, spinning into a black cornered hole, destroyed. Shit, I so want to be a good mom.
So Black Deep Corners. So Black Deep Corners represented the starting place for most women. This first piece of art, what the artists wanted to share is that it was important for me to respectfully hear the mother's struggle while also providing a sense of wonderful things to come. The sky is dark, representing her description of feeling black corners are getting bigger and moving in. She speaks about her desire to so want to be a good mom. I painted her holding her child's hand as together they fly a bright and vibrant kite, which symbolizes hope breaking through the dark clouds. Although the kite may seem far away, she holds that within her grasp, offering a sense of happiness and hope that she speaks about and is deserving of. This was the second piece in Black Deep Corners, and it was actually created by Katie. And what Katie wanted to share is that the difference between the poems is the realization that strength and power lie within, and the women are harnessing that to show up authentically for their children. You can look at the 4 poems separately, but if you look at them as a whole, they tell the story of a woman's journey. Despite the fact that each poem represents someone different, the journey of struggle, heartbreak, fear, doubt, courage, vulnerability, strength, power, and authenticity unites them.
Breaking through the brokenness. I would have never killed myself. I won't do that. I can't do that. I know that now. Hello, I'm beautiful broken, because I know even though today could be hard, tomorrow will be way better. And I realize the strength of what I've overcome. I am my strength. Dealing with really deep issues, I would often have no idea why I was feeling this way. Life-changing therapy, I actually figured it out, which was like why it was like so breakthrough. I can tell you I'm able to stop it now. And then I'm able to figure it out with what my triggers were before they happen sometimes. So then I try to be more accepting of the fact that this is who I am and that it will be okay. This is who I am. It isn't horrible, but it makes me probably a better mom, which kind of sucks that I had to go through all of this, but it would, because it makes me care more. Beautiful broken isn't as broken as she once was.
So we had one artist who chose this poem to represent their artwork, and this is what she wanted to share. Hello, I am beautiful broken. Mosaics are created through a process of breaking ceramics and putting them together again in new and unexpected ways. Even though today will be hard, tomorrow will be way better. The tiles and mosaics surrounding the mother and child in this painting create a hectic atmosphere of chaotic stimuli, but there is peace in the mother's embrace. This is who I am, and it will be okay. There is growth here too, and sunlight and color and love, visible alongside the cracks and brokenness, not despite of it. It just makes me care more.
Triggering my thoughts. Intrusive, so scary, bad thoughts. Thoughts clouding around. Literally, I jumped from being totally fine to being in my worst state. My heart beats really, really fast. Smells of my disgust, feeling that feeling again. I can't control it. I know what it is. All fear would come in over me and take me over. Fear instantly turning to anger. I lash out to those I protect. I can't get air. Breathe, stay calm, struggling to stay calm. My chest hurts. It's coming. No, The freak out moment. No, I don't want to be another Form 1. Is anybody listening? Need help. I can't. And then children are being hurt. We have to keep them safe, save them away from danger. Vulnerable, unprotected children, things invading my thoughts. Fix it. Afraid? I know it's ridiculous, but it doesn't seem ridiculous at the moment. Triggers, pull the trigger.
The first piece of triggering my thoughts is a piece of poetry. Jordan was inspired to handcraft this kinesthetic work of pottery with clay that he created just for this piece. Jordan stated that he was overwhelmed by the poem, and this creation was born from those feelings. The second piece in triggering my thoughts, the artist wanted to share that judgment thrives in unfamiliar environments as there is no connection to the words we are speaking. The poem addresses this through the mother's concern about others' words. I wouldn't tell anybody, and I was so afraid. These fears and doubts surround the mother, consuming her thoughts. But the love between the mother and the child is more powerful than doubt. It's the center of their relationship. This bond is shaped by love.
Now perfectly imperfect. Soaring above the black, taking back the power to know the feel of my worth. I have value. Oh yes, I'm imperfect, which for me is just perfect. I have changed. I know that society doesn't view me as healthy, competent, but I, and only I, can only say that about me, only me. Now, in the light, with the dark corners receding, I allow myself to see me as a really strong woman. Like if I'm in a really good place, I don't feel like a failure as much. I'm happier, more confident. I am better and good for my children. Imperfect, perfectly.
So we had 4 artists that submitted their individual art pieces representing this poem. And the artist of the particular piece on the screen right now wanted to share the following. The words perfectly imperfect in the poem resonated with me as the trees. Just like the mother in this poem may be perceived as imperfect, but are in fact perfectly so. Just like the straight aspen trees, they, the woman, are strong, providing shelter to the seedlings and those who walk among them, and are thriving in sometimes hostile climate of the prairies. The wooden plank through these trees reflects the healing journey described in this poem, where a woman comes to value herself as she is, that it is okay to be who she is as a mother. Similarly do these trees. The pathway is open, free of impediments to block one's way. Leaves scattered on the side, remnants of the past, although there one can move past them. The artist of this second piece wanted to share the following. This art piece embodies a woman's ability to acquire self-acceptance in the midst of inner conflict. The motif used in this artwork was inspired by the Japanese art of kintsukuroi, or kintsugi, where broken pottery is fused back together using gold or precious metals. This style of art is thought to make something that is broken more beautiful, through the process of repair. The belief of being beautifully broken is known in Japan as wabi-sabi, which loosely translate to mean that things can exist as perfect despite imperfections. The artist believes that wabi-sabi is exemplified through the human experience by means of displaying resiliency in the face of adversity, which was emphasized throughout the aforementioned poem. This third art piece was submitted by an individual, and it was actually 2 art pieces. So we can see the one side is a bit more of the gray and black colors, and then the right side is more of a colorful depiction. And they wanted to share the following. The main idea of this piece is the change in color and surroundings, her self-realization. Herself as a woman, the circle, stays the same, because she was always strong, always good for her children, and always had value. Now that she realized the strength and the confidence in herself, she overcame the black, the struggles, and the judgment. She was always perfect and always will be for her family and self. No one is in fact perfect, thus making her perfectly imperfect. And the last art piece that was submitted to represent this poem is the one that we use in our advertisements and in our cover. And the artist wanted to share the following. The fist represents the power of a negative force, while the other hand simultaneously receiving the blow while blocking the negative force represents the strength and courage of a mother so that her child may remain protected. I chose to add color to this drawing to illustrate how the mother is able to turn a negative experience for herself into something positive for her children by being an even more capable and strong individual than she was before. It is through her imperfections that she is perfect for her children.
So, what was the experience of this art event? Well, first and foremost, individuals who attended were able to go on the journey that women talked about through that intervention, starting with that place of despair in the first poem, and then the place of figuring out how to be beautifully broken, dealing with triggers, and then that final self-acceptance piece, which was the power of the intervention and the transformational change that women and mothers talked about. So the impact of this work is that researchers are and were fascinated by the ABLE method and the interpretation. And in turn, we've been invited to a number of conferences to share our findings. Unfortunately, COVID-19 happened. And so we weren't able to attend those conferences, but it's why we feel so honored and excited to be able to come and share the findings and the poem and the art pieces here with you today. Unfortunately, shortly after data collection for this study, the hospital cut funding to this project, to this intervention, because of budget cuts. As such, our team is trying to build a case as to why this program needs to be re-implemented. And we are currently in the process of applying for research grants to build that evidence base to encourage the hospital to look at this program again. Finally, our collaborators at shelters were very interested in this method as a means to help women tell their stories and shape their own narratives. And we're in discussions with them about how the ABLE method might look integrated into art therapy programs in shelters or associated with shelters as a means to help support women. So that's the story of how our research team changed the way that we share our findings through the integration of poetry and art as a means to ensure that we represent the findings of this study in a way that fully reflected the powerful transformational change women and moms experienced. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to share our research today, and I would like to thank the Artists and Artisans Development and Network, as well as the Canadian Red Cross, who made Break the Silence in COVID-19 possible. But most of all, I'd like to thank the women who shared their stories with us. They are an inspiration, and we feel absolutely privileged to bear witness to their motherhood journey. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tara and Katie. First of all, I want to say I think it's amazing the way you've approached such a sensitive but such an important issue in our society regarding women who are dealing with intimate partner violence and sometimes cannot speak up. So you're being their voice, and the artists who are involved are being their voice. So that's amazing. And I think it's really fascinating the way we've connected art with science now, because usually we feel like we can't connect it, but you've been able to in a way that shares important information to women who need this information, and partners who can help their partners live a healthy life. Some interesting points from the poems, the beautiful poems that were shared, that I wanted to make note of are, some of them said, "I am my strength," or "There's peace in a mother's embrace," "I have value." These I statements are so important because sometimes we forget that, especially when there's intimate partner violence. So it's important for women to remember that you have value, and through self-acceptance, even though there's so much inner conflict, you can, grow from that and have a healthy life. So I want to read some comments from some of the viewers. We see here the comment, "Lots of hard work and thought put into the research and the literature. Great work." Also, very good information to know. And I agree with all of that as well. We will be taking questions and having a Q&A period after another performance by the wonderful Shraddha Mittal. So I will let Shraddha take it away, and then we will meet right back here and answer all of your questions.
So the second song on which I will be doing a performance is Ori Chiraiya. I remember when I was doing this song, I got emotional in some of the scenes, because the song, it is all about like what all pain the woman goes through in their life, and also it is the lyrics, it is how having a woman in their life brightens their life. So it has both the things, the torture as well as having a woman in one life is so like it helps the people to brighten their life. Hope you will like my performance. Thank you.
चिड़ैया नन्ही सी चिड़िया अंगना में फिर आ जा रे ओरी चिड़ैया नन्ही सी चिड़िया अंगना में फिर आ जा रे अंधियारा है घना और लहू से सना किरणों के तिनके अंबर से चुनके अंगना में फिर आ जा रे हजारों सितम है किए हमने तुझ नहीं तू जो उड़ जाएगी ये ज़मीं तेरे बिन सूनी रह जाएगी किसके दम पे सजेगा मेरा अंगना ओरी चिरैया मेरी चिरैया अंगना में फिर आ जा रे ओरी चिरैया नन्ही सी चिड़िया अंगना में फिर आ जा रे
Thank you so much, Shraddha, for a beautiful dance to the song Ore Churaya. I wanted to read some comments of your wonderful dance, which are great dance, Shraddha, awesome performance, and congratulations. And the audience members also welcome you. So thank you so much for that. And I really like that you did say that your dance also helps people brighten their life. It's a beautiful message. So I wanted to move on and discuss some questions that were posed for Tara and Katie regarding your research. So I wanted to ask you, how does your research address or deal with the people who are perpetrating or perpetuating intimate partner violence?
Yeah, that's a great question, Santa. So in our research, we tend to focus on the women who are experiencing violence and helping to support them to navigate through systems and enable systems that are supportive of them. So we actually don't deal with the individuals who are perpetrating the violence so much as work to empower the women who are experiencing it to take control over their lives in the ways that they would like to do that.
Mm-hmm. I understand, because it's important to put emphasis on what the woman or potential victims are going through, and how to address what they need, right? So that makes sense.
Absolutely. And we focus then on sort of what we as researchers would call the structural violence piece. So that piece when they're going to get help from systems and those systems aren't helpful because they don't know how to respond to women who've experienced violence, or they don't know how to provide sort of proper or holistic care. And so that's what we sort of focus on.
Mm-hmm. And that's important because sometimes we don't know what resources exist, or as you mentioned in your presentation, even when we're able to access those resources, they're perhaps inadequate to address the specific issue at hand, or they themselves might not have the resources to be equipped to address certain issues like intimate partner violence. So it's good to know that. I wanted to know, in attaining this research, did you find that it was difficult for women to come forward? And how did you tackle that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So we do lots of research with women who have or are experiencing intimate partner violence. And in our experience, when we post about a study and we recruit on, Kijiji or community boards, etc., most women want to share their story because they want to help other women. They want to make sure that other women don't have similar experiences or know about their experience so that it can be helpful. And so we actually, unfortunately, don't have trouble recruiting women into studies, which speaks to the fact that we have a pandemic in a pandemic, right? We're in the pandemic of COVID-19, but there's also a pandemic of intimate partner violence. And the fact that there are so many women who experience it and we don't have trouble recruiting speaks to that. I really wish, Sana, that I could say we really struggle because there aren't a lot of women who experience it, but unfortunately that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. So you notice that there's a big volume of women who do go through this and we just aren't aware necessarily.
Yeah, research in Canada would indicate that about a third of Canadian women will experience intimate partner violence at some point in their lifetime. When you think about that, that's a really big and disturbing number. And we tend to think about IPV as somebody else's problem or an issue that affects other people. And it's not, it's all of our issues. And with the lockdowns, as was sort of said in that intro video, we are seeing heightened abuse because there's additional stresses on families. And so this is a really dangerous time for women who are in abusive relationships.
Wow. I wanted to know actually a little bit more about that. With the people that you encountered, whether it was during the actual research study or other women who have dealt with intimate partner violence, did they know or were they aware always that they were in fact being abused? Because I know that in some, depending on your community or depending on your exposure to a lot of things, a lot of women can mistake intimate partner violence for something normal or for a type of love. So, did the women know that that was abuse? Were they aware that there was something wrong going on?
Yeah, so women who join our study, part of the criteria is that they have to identify as experiencing IPV. And so, if you see an ad for a research study and a woman doesn't identify as experiencing IPV, she probably won't necessarily opt in. We do sort of sampling like that where women opt in. As a researcher, what I can say is that women are on a continuum. There are women who know and are ready to do something about it. There are women who know and aren't ready to do something about it, and there are women who don't know. And all of those stages is a process that she's going through. And what we know is confronting women about it or pushing women to understand it is not helpful, because then we're just perpetrating that same type of control that she has over her in a relationship. The best thing that we can do is to provide information. And that's why there's some really great campaigns about what is IPV, how do you identify if it's IPV, and just being really careful about some of the wording that we use, because just because there is an abusive relationship doesn't mean that the love's not real. And so the love can be real, and it can also be an abusive relationship, and not creating some of those false dichotomies, I think is really important.
That is very interesting. And it's important to know that there can be love, but then there can be this, abuse, and how to address that and how to make sure that you're safe and healthy, right? So thank you so much. I wanted to know if there were any final words that you wanted to leave us with before we move on.
I think and I don't want to speak for Katie, but just thank you. Thanks for putting on an event such as this and for inviting us to come and share. And just mostly also thank you to all the women who are participating and just keeping themselves safe during COVID-19. And I love that you guys put up resources for women that are accessible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tara and Katie. Once again, amazing research and very important research. And I hope that we can all play a part in spreading this information as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I wanted to also acknowledge our supporting teams, our board of directors of the Artists and Artisans Development and Network and Geisha Productions, Inc. And I also wanted to name our partner agencies. So the Positive Community Development, Creative Joys, Chocolate Films, the IDRF, Ryerson University, Trios College, the University of Toronto, Diversity and Cultural Association, Swar Gunjan Music Academy, and many others. Once again, I'm so grateful for Shraddha Mittal and Tara and Katie for all that they've done in showing us how art can be used to discuss, so many important issues at hand. And today, talking about domestic violence against women and elderly abuse. I also wanted to acknowledge our upcoming participants as well, and our team, Shirin Mandini, Gloria Gif Nankunda, Manal Hussain, Brian Kizala, Blazy Regulus, and Mary Carmen Taylor. And once again, acknowledging Red Cross Canada and the Artists and Artisans Development and Network for shedding light on this important issue of elderly abuse and violence against women. We encourage you to, follow us on social media and stay up to date on the series and the important issues that we'll be tackling in the series. You can also contact us via email at info@artistandartisans.ca. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Next week, we will have our speaker, Dr. Abdul Hamid Hatiani, the artist Idris Lawal, and it will be hosted by Global TV's Shiba Siddiqui. So I leave you with Shraddha Mittal's last performance, which I'm so excited for, number 3. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us next Saturday at 2:00 p.m.
Hi, so the song which I will be performing is called Bake Off, which means fearless. So the song is beautifully describes how women desire to live fearlessly. The marks on the body, the assault, the pain, everything will be healed with the determination of women living without any fear. Hope you will like my performance. Thank you for watching.
दीवारें ऊंची है, गलियां हैं तंग, लंबी डगर है पर हिम्मत है संग, पाँव पे छाले हैं सांसें बुलंद, लड़ने चली हूँ आजादी की जंग, बेखौफ आजाद है जीना मुझे, बेखौफ आजाद है रहना मुझे, बेखौफ आजाद है जीना मुझे, बेखौफ आजाद है रहना मुझे। रीति की जंजीरें खा गई जंग, न्याय के मंदिर भी हो गए भंग, जमाना चले ना चले मेरे संग, बोलूंगी हल्ला आवाज दबंग, बेखौफ आजाद है कहना मुझे, बेखौफ आजाद है रहना मुझे, बेखौफ आजाद है कहना मुझे, बेखौफ आजाद है रहना मुझे। छोटे जिस्म पर मरहम उमंग, लाश नहीं हूँ मन जिंदा पतंग, दिल में उम्मीदें और खुशियों के रंग, हर आंसू बनेगा एक नई तरंग,